I'm Eric Chummy, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chummy. Today, we're talking about B2B companies and their social media presence, right? That's always been a difficult thing to figure out. And I actually don't know how it works, really. I am more the media guy. I'm not really the social media guy. So we have the actual social media experts here. We got Connor, we got Sarah, really leading point on so much of what BoSpar is doing here for our brands and businesses, our clients, and what they're doing on social. So let me just start with you, Connor. What should a B2B company be doing on social media? Should they be having a Facebook account, an Instagram account? Like I get LinkedIn sort of, but what is the base case for, hey, you're B2B, you don't interact with normal consumers, you don't need 1 million followers. What should your social media profile look like?
Well, first thing they should do is take stock of what social media profiles they have and get rid of ones that aren't working for them. I think there's this false conception that more is better when it comes to social media. And a lot of B2B companies kind of fell victim to that during the land rush or the user platform rush back in 2015 or 2016, where they established a presence on channels and never really came up with the right strategy and just publish on them. And so now in 2025, it's been about 10 years and their strategy hasn't evolved, their content hasn't, and there are a lot of things that just aren't a good fit anymore. So figuring out what works for them and getting rid of what doesn't is the first thing they should be doing. The second is starting to make content that's social specific. So everyone hates being stuck next to that boring person at a wedding, right? You're at the table, but it's like you're maybe the entertaining one. And, what do you do with that other cousin, right? And social media is often treated like, well, I'm just going to put this here and hope something good works out, right? There's not a lot of intention put in there for certain companies. And it's a place where press releases or different kinds of news is shared, maybe a link to a blog post. But social media platforms have really evolved and continue to evolve to powerhouses for telling a more dynamic story than just the written word, which is what consumers want, whether it's B2B or B2C. And so figuring out a content strategy that they can support is the second thing that they should look at right away. I don't know, Sarah, what am I missing?
I will add to that. To start us off, 90% of users follow a brand on social media. That includes B2C companies and B2B companies. People like a company that's B2B, they want to follow them on social media and they want to stay up to date with the latest news from that company. So we work with our clients to create a strategy that makes sense. Everything Connor is saying, that's where we start. We need to know who our audience is, where our audience is active, and they are on social media. They might not be on, the first social platforms we think of, like LinkedIn, for example. Some B2B audiences are on there for sure. Some might not be for our specific clients and who their customers are. They might be, more of a technical audience that prefers to be on platforms like Reddit and Discord, and maybe it's Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Those are important channels to think about. So we always start with thinking who our audience is, where are they active, and then, like Connor mentioned, tailoring a plan and a content strategy that is unique for each platform. What you do on LinkedIn will absolutely not work for what you want to do on Instagram and TikTok and all those platforms I mentioned. So that's really important to start off, having a strategy that makes sense on each platform. But it's absolutely important that every B2B company should have a presence on social media. It's part of people's day-to-day lives today. They go to social media when they need help, when they have a question, when they want to double check brand credibility. It's a proven fact that people want to see a presence on social media, and it adds credibility to a brand.
So there's no version of a company in B2B that you would say you don't need to be on social media. Like, is there any situation where it's like, you know what, you're so niche, don't even bother?
In my opinion, no, but I wouldn't say that every single company needs to be on every single social media profile. There's a select few that might work best for your audience. And maybe it is something that's smaller, like having an active presence on Reddit to manage
Right.
conversations on Reddit. And that's, less of a
Like,
presence
or
of
we're only on Discord or something like that. Like we're at least
exactly.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yes. And so that it's a range, but I would say every brand benefits from being on social media and from having an active presence where their customers and their audience is.
It feels like LinkedIn's the default for B2B right now, but are people really engaging? Or are they just lurking? Like, I feel like there's so much garbage on LinkedIn that I can't even use it anymore. Like I just can't deal with it. And I don't know if you guys face that. I don't know.
I definitely face that.
Yeah.
I think that the bigger question, and something I think a lot about with social media now, is there used to be almost this promise that if someone followed your page, they'd get information, right?
Yeah.
They'd get enough of your updates and the follow would be worth something. And the reason you were posting is because X% of your audience would see this. The more we move through what social media means for companies in general, B2B specific, it is a way to introduce yourself to your audience, but it's not a way to own that communication channel. And I think something that's really interesting to think about is using social media to A, get information out there, right? But like B, what are you doing to take that relationship and put it into, get their email address, or build a Slack community and get them to join it, a Discord community and get them to join it. So social media as the appetizer, but your main course is living in another place where you're able to build that relationship more fully and share information more freely.
The thing with LinkedIn is that it's changing constantly. Their algorithm is changing constantly. And so while, like Hunter mentioned, historically, you'd follow a company on LinkedIn and see their updates every day, every week, whatever it may be. That's not necessarily the case anymore. What we're finding that works really well on LinkedIn right now with today's algorithm that, again, could change any minute, is more of an outbound engagement and community management style. So we're pushing out information. Of course, we have, owned content. We have announcements and press releases and webinars that we want to push out for our clients from their own channels. But also the next step is doing some social listening. What conversations are happening on LinkedIn that are related to our client or their keywords that our client can comment on. We can identify those posts, add a comment on as an outbound engagement approach. We're finding that it's a much better way of, one, driving traffic and engagement and clicks to our LinkedIn page. And it's a great way of cultivating what people like about social media, which is the two-way conversation and learning something from social media and, asking others, finding other real people who have answers to their questions. That's what people really like about social. So we're finding that outbound strategy right now is working really well with the LinkedIn algorithm. And that's something we always recommend is, in addition to pushing out content, is developing content that engages with existing content that other people are posting.
And I'd say, Eric, a question for you, and I think Sarah said
a question
that
for
well.
me. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, well, so Sarah really talked about, the concept of like social proof, right? So the last time that you opened LinkedIn, do you remember anything in your feed that specifically stood out? And if so, like, was it a organic article that just happened to be there, or was it something that was in your feed because a connection of yours commented on it, liked it, shared it?
I was just looking at that within the last 24 hours, and I was looking at this stuff, and you're like, I don't even know who this person is or what is it. And you goes,
Mr.
This
Big
other person that I know, they commented on it or they liked it. I'm like, I haven't worked with that person in 15 years.
Yeah.
And because they liked something, it gets so far afield from what I'm interested in. But no, it's funny in the end. I find that, at least on LinkedIn in particular, I find that feel bad about yourself? Because like, look at all the stuff everyone else is doing. Everybody else is the CEO of every company, and they're on every red carpet, and they, you know, launched a documentary, but it's, you know, it's like, you know, 1,000 people doing all these things. But it feels like, you know, one person did all these things, right? Like, here's all this stuff you could have done, but instead you're just sitting here, you know, eating a grilled cheese sandwich, and you've done nothing in your life, right? So LinkedIn, I feel like I have to just, maybe it's like the corporate person's equivalent of, like, they say, like, you know, teenage girls on Instagram feel really bad about themselves. I feel like LinkedIn is like that version for like a 40-year-old guy or something. I don't know, but.
And you make a great point, and something that we do a lot is executive visibility programs with our clients and their executives. And the goal is not to make people feel bad about themselves, but the goal is to position the executive as an expert in their field. So that is part of the programs we offer in, you know, developing content for them that either promotes their company's news, their own content, it promotes their thought leadership content, whether it's like a earned coverage piece of thought leadership, or it promotes their thoughts and perspective on something that's trending in the industry. And we are trying to put them in front of people like you, Eric, and say, wow, this person is really accomplished. They know what they're talking about. They are the CEO of this company, and that looks like a great company because this person really knows what they're saying. So that is another element of LinkedIn.
How do you balance the brand of the person versus the brand of the company, right? Because those are two different currencies, and those are two different types of posts, regardless of whether it's LinkedIn, whatever platform, right? How do you differentiate when you want to give the person the attention versus the, you know, anonymous company in a way?
Yeah. A lot of the times executives we find are a lot more comfortable talking about their company than they are about themselves, regardless of what we see on LinkedIn. I think we tend to see a lot of, you know, people who are happy to talk about themselves and their own accomplishments, and that's great. But a lot of thought leaders in the space, in the tech B2B field, they're a little bit more comfortable talking about their company and like the news and the trends in that industry. So that tends to be the majority of our focus. But again, we are highlighting the company through the lens of that thought leader's perspective, so that we're not missing the element of this person is an expert and they are the CEO of this company. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It's focused on the company for the most part, but it's always tying in their perspective, their expertise, their take, and their thoughts on something that's happening in the industry, on something that their company is doing, so that we're able to kind of tie in both elements. They're an expert, but they lead this company.
How do you measure success, right? Because there's a lot of metrics, there's a lot of social metrics, but how do you measure that in relation to business success, that, you know, bottom line success for the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. Connor?
Well,
you, Connor, yeah.
I think if we get back to the grilled cheeses real quick, something I did before we get to the next question, something that Sarah said, or you know, I'd like to add in there is, well, it is a lot about business. I mean, something that we encourage a lot of people to do is still be themselves, right? So maybe you are doing a grilled cheese power ranking of Manhattan, and you're mixing something fun in with all this business talk, right? Like, you want to give people something to connect to beyond just your business or your professional accolades. So I think it's really important to be mindful of that, no matter what kind of content you're producing for an executive. And we try to give them opportunities for showcasing them beyond the office as well, and going from there. So talking metrics, you know, it just depends what the objective is, right? And like, I think we are a PR firm at heart, and so what we care about is getting people's attention and broad visibility, right? You'd say, okay, if we're looking at this whole, like, unique impressions is probably, I don't know, would that be the best KPI across all PR, right? So we are trying to get as many people to know about that individual or that idea or that post as possible. So, you know, I would think it's twofold. The first is, you know, unique impressions, or just impressions in general, or reach. And then the second is, does it require action? So is it a video view? Is it a click to a website? or something of that nature, if we're looking at just how to measure this across the board.
No disagreements? I would see if Sarah was going to be like, I like to do something different.
No, that's 100% accurate. I will throw in there that we love a thought leader ad on LinkedIn. So if you really have aggressive goals or big goals of driving those impressions and that awareness or that engagement and those clicks, it doesn't hurt to boost a post and run a thought leader ad where we can launch an ad on an executive post. They tend to perform really well because people would much rather see a post coming from a person than a company that's put in front of them using paid ad money. So that is something that we find a lot of success in to drive those metrics that Connor mentioned. If we're trying to hit those high goals, it definitely doesn't hurt to run a thought leader ad.
What are the biggest arguments that you're having with companies? Like they come in, let's say you get a new client. Hey, great, you're going to be our new social agency and we want you to do X, Y, Z. And you have to go back to them and say, no, that's not what we're going to do. Because you don't want us to do that. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are the arguments that you find that are the most common that you have with clients?
Well, the first, it's a good question because it's something that we run into a lot, which is really unique with social media. Almost everyone has a personal experience with the platform.
They think they know.
Right. They think they know. I did this on this and this worked. And so there's so many use cases. You hear so many stories of someone doing something on their personal Facebook profile. And, why aren't we tagging everyone I follow in this post so we can get maximum visibility, right? And you're just like, Holmes, I don't know how to tell you this. That's not going to work on LinkedIn. I mean, gosh, a guy could dream. But I would say like there's a lot of just bad habits out there. And it's stuff that works well in small groups and personal pages that you can't do for big businesses. And, I think a problem that we run into all the time is just, hey, can you just throw this up, right? And, there's no thought, there's no energy, there's no juice behind it, right? Like the people want a story. They don't just want 2 sentences and a link to a landing page, right? They want something more. And I think that there's, we face some pushback from clients where we say, are there graphics? Is there a budget that we can use to promote this? Is there a video? Like what kind of assets do we have to work with this piece of content? So I think when we don't have the assets, it makes it hard. The second part is people are so quick to move on from something. So you spend 2 weeks putting together this awesome blog post, and oftentimes people only post about it one time. Like why aren't we using this more frequently? Why aren't we sprinkling this in more? But it's like, oh, I got to get this other thing up, and I can only post 2 times in one day. So we get pushback all the time on we want to promote something more. There aren't rules in terms of posting too many times in one day now. But there's still pushback on that as well. I'm probably missing about 4 or 5 different things.
I'm sure Sarah's got a few.
Yeah, Sarah, what are your war stories? What scars do you have?
I don't know that I have anything like really that scarring,
Well,
but
what's typical? What I'm really curious about is like, what is the typical like?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we have to fight this fight every single week with a different client, because I want clients to hear this and realize that you're not the only one with this idea. You're not the only one who thought that let's tag everybody in the post, for example, or the number of times I can post in a day. Like I'm curious more that what is this everyday disagreement that people don't realize because they're not in it every day with you?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is that a lot of people think that B2B tech social profiles should be boring and just basic business language, nothing out of the box, nothing exciting, nothing trendy. And that is not going to get you very far on social media. Those are not going to be top performing posts that reach new audiences, because what we're really looking to do is to have a post that's so high performing, it's getting all this engagement, that it lands on other people's feeds and we have new audiences seeing the post. So that's something that we have that conversation quite a bit from my perspective of, let's try something new. Let's think out of the box, whether it be a visual, a video we know video will perform really well, whether it be something trendy, something a little bit pop culture reference tie-in, that can really just stand out from the rest a little bit more. I think we run into that. It's difficult to do in B2B tech. Obviously, everything we're saying is, within brand messaging and aligns with brand values, but sometimes it's a great way to, stand out from the rest, is being a little bit creative and, a little bit trendy.
I'd also say clients need to stop with X/Twitter.
I was going to say
it's really difficult for them to share news when the platform is the news, and like your post is going to show up in a news feed with so much garbage. It's like America's Funniest Home Videos on there right now. Like, this is not a platform for serious business anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you rank the different platforms? Because we know B2B is happening on LinkedIn, but like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, like I know Instagram's a lot of influencers and there's that kind of stuff, but how are you ranking most sort of likely place to find success?
Well, so Sarah, you found the most success in the most unlikely place. I feel like this is the meat right here.
What's the story? Sarah's on MySpace again, or Friends?
Yeah, Sarah's HTML coding MySpace for clients.
That is not true. I can't imagine that. What I will say is, so yes, to Connor's thoughts on X, unless you have a highly established audience there. And the same goes with Facebook. That is what Connor's referring to, where we've recently found success for a client because they had an already established audience that has been there for years and years, since Facebook was, really popular.
So they're not a new startup then. They must have been around for a while. Yeah.
They've been around for a while. They have their audience on Facebook, and we have found success running ads, and specifically lead gen ads. So driving leads through Facebook ads. And that's because their audience is, can be a younger crowd. It kind of can span from amateur level to a lot more seniority expertise level. And I think that's benefited us with Facebook. I think has a wide range of users on there. And again, they already had an established audience. So that is somewhere we found success. X/Twitter is an interesting one. Some of our clients do have a pretty large following on there that they don't want to leave. They value the people that do follow them on X. And so we keep the lights on and we continue speaking to that audience because that audience engages with our content and they've been around for years. Definitely, if a client does not have a strong presence on X, it's typically not worth attempting to build an audience there because the platform is so unpredictable right now. But I think that's the difference. A lot of our clients who have established audiences, that is where we would consider spending our time on that platform.
Is it better? Is it when I see a company and they have some social media accounts, go on and be like 60 followers, right? Like, is it better to have that on and try to keep posting stuff because it looks like you're in business, or is it better to just make it go away because the follower count is almost so embarrassing that you don't want people to see that?
So I don't think there's anything wrong with having 60 followers, right? But it does kind of signal that you're not putting much energy into this, which I don't think you'd want to signal that to a prospect. I don't think you want to signal that to employees. I don't think it looks good for a reporter looking at your company. I think that's overall, it just kind of erodes the vision or that anyone has of you, right? Like it takes away all the credibility that this beautiful website has.
But it's a chicken and egg, but it's like, somewhere you started at zero. So what do you do?
Well, but I will say this to the 60 followers. Followers don't really matter anymore. And so putting a lot of emphasis on your follower account is maybe one of the biggest red flags when it comes to social media, especially right now, because Sarah alluded to this a little bit earlier. And I think if I were to do like a proper power ranking of my B2B social media platforms, this would be somewhat reflected in it. It almost matters just as much, maybe more, what's happening off your channels than what's happening on them. So for me to tell you that, people are going to go to your channel and read all your news stuff is, obviously a bunch of baloney. But if I were using that account with 60 followers and I were going out and commenting on threads in the industry and engaging with material and getting my name out there and getting people to click on links that I was posting on different pages, then that'd be a great use of that social media channel. But I think people look at what theirs is, not what's going on in the greater ecosystem, right? And I think it's really important to understand that, like, social media, your social media is like the curb appeal of your house. And what you're doing on social media is like you going to a third space and networking and like who you are out in the wild with other people. And there's just this very bullish idea that it's almost arrogance that people go and look what's on your channel. Like, you got to bring it to them and you got to find out ways to do it. And I think that there are a lot more people doing that now and not getting hung up on their post, their following, that are going out and kind of town squaring their ideas more and using social to do that.
Are you guys ever recommending people buy followers? I keep hearing about people like, oh, this guy has all these followers because he bought them, or he followed everybody back when you would follow someone and they would follow you back, and then he dumped all the people. So he doesn't have a real following. It's all nonsense. Like, I hear rumors of people that are jealous about others who have bigger followings. Well, what's really going on?
What year is it?
2025. This is the conversation I had 2 weeks ago with somebody.
Really? Sarah, do you want to take this?
Sure. I think the simple answer is no. We are never recommending that clients should purchase followers. I think that we want followers who are going to engage with our content. And typically when you buy followers, they're bots and fake accounts and not engaged followers that would potentially be a customer or a prospect for a client. So the bottom line is, no, we want to drive following through, credible avenues like posting relevant content, that community engagement that Connor mentioned, and, generating followers that are actually interested in our content. I think that's way more meaningful than that number on the top of the profile.
And you mentioned meaningful content. So a lot of people struggle with, should I post something on a consistent basis, or should I wait till I have something really, really good so I post fewer but really awesome stuff? Like, the average content in that case is higher, but it's less of it. Like, what would be better for a company, or does it depend on the kind of company it is?
I think it depends, but it also is like you can have both. You don't need to just like only post when you have something really big and exciting. And you could also look at the big and exciting thing and think, how can I divide this up into a few posts rather than just save it for one big post? There's Sarah and I were actually talking about this earlier today, is the big trend of, day in the life, or like, one day at a time, day 22, day 24, every single day posting something. And like, not every day is going to be magical, but like the days that are, then people are already following along on the journey, right? And like, you're kind of creating this story for them to be a part of. So, I think that if you look at it from a macro creative standpoint, is like, what are you doing to connect the dots, right? And if you can connect the dots with the big pieces of content alone, then that's awesome. You don't need a post just to post anymore. But if you are on the platform, there's almost a bit of a handshake of like, I'm going to post enough that I'm going to make this worth everyone's time. So like 2 times, 3 times a week, maybe that's the right thing. There isn't just a magic number like I got to post 10 times. And this is going to help me grow.
Do you find that, and I'll let Sarah answer, but as part of it, do you find that people are typically not posting enough, or they're posting too much?
Too much. The internet needs better content, doesn't need more content.
Yeah, and what I'll add to that is Connor's saying, there's not a magic number of how many times to post each week. That's perfect. But consistency is key. And if you want to build a strong platform and engaged following, you're going to need to post consistently so that people don't just see one post and then never anything else. And also, people have really short attention spans. So, like Connor mentioned, breaking up big pieces of content, important pieces of content into several posts and posting once a week about that same topic and, maybe a little mini campaign. That's a great way to present a big idea in smaller pieces. You can also do that really well with visuals so that it ties all the campaign posts together, or videos. Love uploading videos to social media. Honestly, the shorter the better. Less than 30 seconds is best. People, again, short attention span, they're not going to sit there and watch a minute-long video on LinkedIn. So clip it up into a bunch of different small snippets, and then you'll get more engagement and you have a lot more posts out of it. That's actually good content. Because like Connor said, you don't just want to post.
Is it crazy how bad our attention span has become? It's like, 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I can't watch more than 10 seconds of something, right?
But I mean, part of this too, and I would say what a social media learning that you could take from like HBO, right? They used to just, or Amazon or any of these big streaming platforms, right? A few years ago, they used to just drop whole seasons over a weekend of a TV show. And now, I mean, they're thoughtfully putting it out over 8 weeks. So you have to have the subscription for 3 months, whole other thing. But they are not making their TV show be a middle of January thing that everyone's going to talk about for a week leading up to and a week following. They are spreading it out so that it is part of a 2-month conversation, and people are, watching White Lotus every Saturday night, right?
Back in the day, that's how TV shows.
Right, back in the day, but we got away from it. We got away from it so bad. But it's like they figured out, like, this cadence is better for me. This cadence works, and this is they adjusted their strategy, and I think that, looking at social media, that's exactly how you should be looking at it.
Yeah.
One thing I've heard from people who have had to hire social media consultants, agencies, workers, individuals for companies, right? It's like, hey, I need to hire someone like a Connor or a Sarah to work here. And their only assessment is how many followers does that person have on their social media account, right? Like, oh, if Connor's going to come tell us what to do, well, he better have 1 million people following him on his account. Otherwise, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What do you say to a company that thinks in that way?
I spent all my time and my resources on my clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm on social media all day on my clients' pages, not necessarily my own.
Respectfully, I think the best social media managers, they would I'll tell you the same. By the time the day ends, I the last thing I'm doing when on my free time is logging on to social media. I've been on it for 8 hours. I'm just a human.
Yeah. No, I think about that with, what does it say? Like the cobbler's kids have no shoes, right? Or it's like, the guy that gets the haircut, but he's getting the guy with the good haircut's the one getting it from the other guy, So it makes me think about that. But you referenced there's too much content as it is already. We need less of it. But with AI now, not only we can get text content, you can do video content. Now, like, what do you two think about when you probably hear companies say, oh, I don't need to hire you guys. Like, I can just do AI. I just put AI content out there and that's going to be my social because I got algorithms. I got, ChatGPT can give me AI content that fits every kind of platform. You must be fighting this on an uphill battle right now.
Yeah. Listen.
Big sigh. That was a big sigh.
Yeah, no, I need to clear my head and get my feelings out. I know that I think I have therapy after this, not during this, right? So, AI is, who knows? I don't know what the future holds, but I know that for social media specifically and for content specifically, we need thoughtful content, and part of social media, and we forget this all the time because slowly but surely your friends and family's photos evaporated from your timeline, and everyone kind of understands at this point, oh, it's because ad money, or maybe you see the photo of your cousin getting married. I don't know, but so much content is being put into your feed by brands and people that you don't know. But the very little that you do know about it, you can somewhat trust that at least it's human generated content. And there's a little bit of that social handshake of, I came here to interact with people. I didn't come here to just be fed content, even though that's really what a lot of social media feels like now. And there's the dead internet theory, which I won't put on my tin hat. This is just that.
Well, I want to hear about your tin hats and your dead internet theory. What's that?
So it's not mine. I don't own it, but I do subscribe to the idea that
you rent a tin hat.
Yeah, exactly. Most content on the internet within the next 2 years, I think the estimate is about 90% of content on the internet will be at least partially AI generated. And, it's more important than ever, in my opinion, for us to remind humans why they're logging on, and they are logging on to, have a piece of content that's thoughtfully served to them by another human. I almost want to sign graphics or posts produced by and put my name with it, so that folks know that this is actually a human being trying to make this bad joke about, this B2B tech software. Because, sooner rather than later, I mean, you see it already. Do you remember the Minecraft videos that just have AI voiceovers telling you a story about a murder in this small town in Missouri? And you're like, well, I guess I just listened to this, but it's that's not even a human, right? We need to be protective about how much we're using generative AI specifically to interact with humans, especially if we want them to be interested in our products. If we can't put the time into producing content that speaks to them, we are using AI to generate our talking points, our collateral, and just how we present ourselves online, then how are we asking for their attention? How are we building a relationship if we're only using AI to do it?
Yeah, I will add, it's really important to us that our social content and our social posts sound authentic and true to the brand's voice. And there's a lot of nuances that sometimes go into brand voice and messaging, and one word that we can say and should say, and one word that we shouldn't say and please stay away from. So those kind of things are another element that is relevant with AI. And that's why we are writing our posts, so that they are authentically coming from a human voice, and that they are 100% aligned with the brand messaging that our clients are looking for.
How much do you use AI in your jobs right now?
Probably 10 to 15%. I mean,
yeah.
Most common use for AI for me is maybe using ChatGPT before a call with a client or a prospect to kind of do a quick audit of what they're up to. It saves me time doing that and produces good results. But other than that, fairly limited.
So you're not using it to help write or edit or come up with copy or anything like that? Or not to be admitted on the screen?
Never writing social content or anything on behalf of our clients or on behalf of us as people, I would say. From my perspective, it's really mainly for research. It's really helpful with competitor analysis and listening for social. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of, what are my competitors doing on social? And that requires, without AI, that requires a lot of manual digging of let me go to this competitor and scroll through their LinkedIn feed. There's not a quick way.
That's like you're using it as if the way we used Google search when it first came out. We're using it to aggregate. I think collection is.
I like writing. Why would I want AI to write for me? I like writing.
I think there's a lot of people that don't like to write.
Yep.
So I think those people might be.
That's fine.
Super interesting, guys. This is fascinating. What's going on these days? So before we go, from each of you, what's one advice, for clients, prospects, for companies, one thing that they should be doing and one thing they should stop doing? What would you say, each of you?
I'd say that what they should stop doing is overthinking. There is this perception to everything on social media always has to be perfect. And I'm not saying that you should purposely put a typo or spell something wrong on any social media post. But at the end of the day, if you're putting out 390 pieces of content every year and there's one typo, it's not really that big of a deal. And sometimes those get more engagement because people are like correcting the error, right? So it's like, yeah, I get it. In a perfect world, everything's going to be great, but stop overthinking. Like it's the internet. It's not this like perfect, harmonious place. And then what was the first part of this?
One thing they should do, one thing they should stop doing.
Yeah. Okay. One thing they should do is just take a break from posting about holidays. No one needs a Thanksgiving post from a B2B software company.
Or like, you get those texts from like the dentist and a doctor went through 7 years ago, like happy birthday. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Like, thanks, see you in 4 months.
It's always from like no reply.
Yeah. Right. Unsubscribe. It's like cringy, right? Yeah.
Posting about normal holidays, unless you have a really creative tie, like unless it's the national day of the animal that your logo is, and like you can do something silly and interesting around that. It has to have some sort of creative tie.
I guess I was going more for general holidays.
Yeah, and
like 4th of July from,
So Connor's like, don't talk about real holidays, and Sarah, you can talk about fake holidays.
Yeah, fake holidays are totally fine.
Yeah.
Use the fake ones to your advantage because there's sometimes some good ones in there that are really relevant for
National Sarah First Name Day or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'll be posting all about that. My stop, what you should be doing is forcing platforms that aren't right for your brand or your audience. So like really trying to make Facebook work or really trying to make Instagram work, for example. I think like you need to have a clear strategy and like a way to support that strategy. We know something like Instagram, TikTok are very visual focused. So if you don't have the visuals to support it, that's okay. Put that energy into a platform where you're going to see more ROI and more engagement. And my start doing or do more of is consider additional avenues for social media growth, awareness, engagement, such as leveraging thought leader profiles on LinkedIn. So looking at some of your executives and how can you use their profiles to spread awareness for your company and for them as people. And then as well as things like that outbound engagement strategy and commenting and considering other platforms. YouTube is a really great platform that doesn't always get looped in with social, but really strong platform to be active on, especially if you have the visuals and video element. So consider other avenues like that. I'll throw in influencers as well. Influencers are another great way to build brand awareness and engagement through that third-party credible source.
Awesome.
Eric, can I do a bonus one?
Oh, bonus one. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Just thank if your company has a social media manager, go and thank them. They probably mostly get noticed when something goes awry, but just go ahead and say thank you. They would love it. I promise.
They're probably in one of those jobs where the only feedback they get is bad feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good. Sarah, Connor, this was super cool. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.